Today I'm going to discuss the rise of the Black megachurch and its impact upon the African American community. First, we need to discuss the definition of a megachurch. Megachurch has been defined by the Hartford Institute for Religious Research as a church with 2,000 or more people in attendance weekly, with a charismatic senior minister. Here we have Bishop T.D. Jakes, who is the bishop of the Potter's House, a non-denominational megachurch. Charles Blake is the presiding bishop of the Church of God in Christ and a pastor of the West Angeles Church of God in Christ. There are critics of megachurches which believe they exist solely for the economic benefit of pastors. Examples are here: Bishop Eddie Long of the New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Lithonia, Georgia. He was accused of engaging in sexual crimes with 5 young men and was a defendant in a civil suit relating to a Ponzi scheme. Creflo Dollar of World Changers Church in College Park, Georgia, is reported to have 2 Rolls Royces, a $79 million private jet, multiple homes, and he's been arrested for attacking his 15-year-old daughter after she wanted to go to a party. Megachurches are characterized by an active congregation. They often have contemporary worship services, which involve the extensive use of technology, including broadcasting across the web and the use of bands with complex instrumentation. Megachurches have complex organizational structures. They own their own property. This may be converted commercial buildings like warehouses and theaters, or may be newly constructed church buildings with architectural elements like that seen here. As noted by Scott Thuma, a professor of sociology and an expert on megachurches, the growth of megachurches is a recent phenomenon. Most megachurches were founded after 1955, with growth primarily beginning in the 1980s and 90s. As researched by Scott Thuma and Warren Bird, megachurches continue to be established and new churches grow rapidly, growing by 91% in the last 5 years. The largest congregations exceed 30,000 people, while the smallest megachurches host 2,000 congregants. These are characteristics of all megachurches. Many have congregations from a variety of racial backgrounds. A Black megachurch includes all of the features we've just mentioned and a predominantly Black congregation with Black church leadership. The growth of Black megachurches is directly linked to the expansion of a growing Black middle class and the historic influence of the Black church in the lives of African Americans, as has been noted by many scholars who have studied the Black church in the United States. As Professor Tamalin Tucker-Wargs notes in her book, The Black Megachurch, Black megachurches are generally established in suburban areas with a confluence of middle-class African Americans. According to Delma Francis, the growth of a class of Black professionals in these suburban areas has offered a communal sense of leadership. Professor Tucker-Wargs classifies megachurch theology into 5 types, which fall upon a continuum from focused upon the individual only to a focus on liberation and social justice. At one end of the continuum are churches which preach the prosperity gospel, that God wants believers to be prosperous, and if one believes and acts according to God's will, he will be prosperous. Bishop Eddie Long, who we saw earlier, preaches the prosperity gospel. These churches are less likely to be involved in community engagement because they do not focus upon changing society, but only upon the individual. If one is poor, it is because he is not right with God, and if he becomes right with God, he will become prosperous. Black liberation theology, which is preached by Antioch Baptist Church North, is on the other end of our continuum. Black liberation technology developed in the civil rights era and focuses upon fighting for the least of these and for the liberation from oppression. Churches adopting the Black liberation theology believe that Christians are responsible to liberate the oppressed and remedy social and economic injustice. And they encourage public engagement. In the middle of our continuum are churches adopting a neo-Pentecostal theology, which is very conservative. They are less likely to engage in political activism, but instead upon advocacy for morality. Neo-Pentecostal churches engage in extensive community outreach programs. There's been a rise of non-denominational churches, which are generally evangelical churches, focused upon salvation of the individual and less on the community at large. According to Scott Thuma, non-denominational churches are located in urban areas with considerably younger memberships than other megachurches. They represent 1/4 of all Black megachurches, as we have seen from the growing Pentecostal movement. They tend to be evangelical. They do not focus on issue advocacy, housing, or commercial development. Churches engaging in a prophetic theology believe that churches should engage in social and political issues. An example here is the New Birth Missionary Baptist Church led by Reverend Eddie Long, who preaches a prophetic theology, including a controversial march against same-sex marriage. Black megachurches have an ability to influence Black lives, as all Black churches do. They do so in a variety of ways based upon their theological orientation. Many have formed community development organizations to further their work. As Professor Tucker Wergs notes, churches with CDOs are more likely to be involved in public engagement. This includes focus upon politics. For example, Alfred Street Baptist Church in Virginia organized a march from the church to a local courthouse in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. Many megachurches organize voter registration drives, a traditional item for the Black church, and encourage voter turnout. Some megachurches focus on constructing affordable housing in and around the church. Others engage in commercial development. Some Black megachurches have business incubators, much like the Nation of Islam, and they encourage entrepreneurialism in the Black community. Some megachurches have credit unions, which they see as a lifeline for the financially vulnerable. Other Black megachurches improve employment opportunities through job counseling and job training. Still others, like most mainstream churches, establish food pantries like this one at Saddleback Church, which operates in multiple locations in California. Given their size, educated, and young congregations, Black megachurches offer a unique opportunity to improve the lives of African Americans.